For the Jedi, kyber crystals are more than just the power source of their lightsabers. They are sacred, living elements of the Force, deeply tied to the very foundation of Jedi philosophy and tradition. Unlike the Sith, who view kyber crystals as tools to be corrupted and controlled, the Jedi believe these crystals are chosen companions, attuned to the wielder's connection to the light side. The process of obtaining a kyber crystal is a rite of passage for every Jedi. From the earliest days of the Jedi Order, it was understood that a Jedi could not simply take a crystal, they had to be chosen by it. This process, known as the Gathering, was a critical milestone in the journey of every youngling training in the Jedi Temple. The Gathering was held on the icy planet of Ilum, one of the most sacred locations in the galaxy. The frozen caves of Ilum were home to countless kyber crystals, naturally growing within the deep caverns, waiting for the Force to guide the right Jedi to them. When the time came, Jedi younglings were brought to Ilum under the guidance of a Jedi Master, usually one deeply connected to the ancient traditions of the Order. Upon arrival, the younglings entered the caves alone. They were given only one instruction: to listen to the Force. Within the caverns, the kyber crystals sang through the Force, calling out to the Jedi they were meant to bond with. Each youngling had to search the caves, listening carefully, meditating and trusting in the Force to guide them to their crystal. This process could take minutes, hours, or even days. Some Jedi struggled, unable to hear the song of their kyber crystal, while others felt drawn immediately to a specific formation. For those who were able to hear the call, the moment of discovery was deeply personal. The crystal would often reveal itself in ways unique to the Jedi, appearing at the right moment when the youngling demonstrated trust in the Force. Once the crystal was found, the Jedi had to carefully extract it without damaging its structure, a task that required both patience and concentration. The moment a Jedi claimed their kyber crystal, they formed an unbreakable bond with it. This connection allowed the Jedi to channel the Force through their lightsaber, and the crystal in turn would amplify their presence in the Force. No two Jedi experienced this bond in the same way. Some described a sense of harmony, as if the crystal was a missing piece of their soul. Others felt a surge of warmth and light, as if they had been given a glimpse of the Force itself. Once a youngling had retrieved their kyber crystal, they returned to the Jedi Temple to complete the construction of their lightsaber. However, this process was not a mechanical assembly. Instead, the Jedi used the Force to guide their hands, allowing the lightsaber to take shape naturally. This ensured that each lightsaber was a unique extension of the Jedi who wielded it rather than just a weapon. The Jedi believed that the kyber crystal was not just an energy source but a companion, a living part of their journey. One of the most mysterious aspects of kyber crystals is their ability to change color based on the Jedi's connection to the Force. When first found, kyber crystals were naturally colorless. It was only after bonding with a Jedi that they would take on a distinct hue, reflecting the Jedi's personality, philosophy, and strength in the Force. The most common colors among the Jedi were blue and green. Blue crystals were often wielded by Jedi Guardians, warriors who focused on lightsaber combat and physical mastery of the Force. Green crystals were favored by Jedi Counselors, those who prioritized wisdom, diplomacy, and a deeper connection to the Force. Other colors, such as yellow, were much rarer, often associated with Jedi Temple Guards or those who walked a path between combat and wisdom. Some Jedi wielded even rarer colors. Mace Windu's purple lightsaber was an anomaly, signifying his unique ability to balance both light and dark side techniques. White kyber crystals, seen in the lightsabers of Ahsoka Tano, were the result of a purified Sith crystal, freed from the corruption of the dark side. The Jedi never sought to control or manufacture kyber crystals. Unlike the Sith, who attempted to manipulate them for their own gain, the Jedi respected the crystals as sacred relics. They never mined them in mass quantities or attempted to mass-produce lightsabers. Each kyber crystal was treated as a unique connection to the Force, and each Jedi's lightsaber was a reflection of their personal growth. Because of this, kyber crystals held immense historical and spiritual value within the Jedi Order. Temples, meditation chambers, and sacred relics were often infused with kyber crystals to enhance their connection to the Force. Some Jedi Masters were even known to meditate with their kyber crystals outside of combat, believing that they could gain deeper wisdom through their resonance. Despite their importance, the Jedi were not the only ones who sought kyber crystals. Over time, their monopoly over these sacred relics led to tensions, particularly with the Sith, who saw kyber crystals as a means of power rather than enlightenment. As the Jedi continued to wield their lightsabers in defense of peace and justice, the Sith plotted to take kyber crystals by force, leading to centuries of conflict over their control. The Jedi viewed kyber crystals as sacred, The Sith viewed them as weapons. This fundamental divide would fuel the greatest battles in Star Wars history and ultimately lead to the downfall of the Jedi Order itself. As we continue to explore the history of kyber crystals, we will uncover how the Sith corrupted these sacred crystals, bleeding them with the dark side to forge their infamous red blades. In the next section, we will examine the dark and violent process of Sith bleeding and how they turned the very heart of the Force into a tool of destruction. Clarity: Kyber crystals and the Sith, the process of bleeding. For the Sith, kyber crystals were never allies, they were obstacles to be dominated. Unlike the Jedi, who respected the natural harmony of the Force and bonded with their crystals through meditation and self-discovery, the Sith saw kyber crystals as something to be bent to their will. The dark side of the Force was about control, passion, and destruction, and the Sith could not simply attune themselves to kyber crystals in the way Jedi could. The crystals, being naturally attuned to the light side, would reject them, refusing to bond with Sith warriors. Because of this, the Sith had no natural way to acquire kyber crystals. In the early days of the Sith Order, Dark Lords would steal kyber crystals from fallen Jedi, taking the crystals from their enemies as trophies. However, these stolen crystals still resisted their new wielders, and the Sith had to find a way to force them into submission. Thus, the process known as bleeding was born. Bleeding a kyber crystal was a violent, unnatural act that went against the very essence of the Force. When a Sith claimed a kyber crystal, they would corrupt it by pouring their hatred, rage, and dark side energy into the crystal, torturing it until it submitted to their will. The process was not simple. It required an immense amount of focus, emotion, and power. The Sith had to fully immerse themselves in the dark side, channeling all of their anger, pain, and hatred into the crystal. If successful, the crystal would bleed, turning a deep, sinister red. The mark of a Sith lightsaber. This process was excruciating, both for the Sith and for the crystal itself. Kyber crystals were living conduits of the Force, and when subjected to such intense pain and corruption, they would scream in protest. Some Jedi who encountered Sith lightsabers claimed they could hear the echoes of suffering within the corrupted crystals. The act of bleeding a kyber crystal was not just about changing its color. It was about forcibly breaking its connection to the light side and bending it to the Sith's will. Not every Sith was capable of bleeding a crystal. The process required not only immense power in the dark side, but also complete surrender to its influence. A Sith who still harbored doubt or emotional weakness would struggle to break a kyber crystal fully. Some Sith Lords, such as Darth Vader, underwent this process as a means of proving their commitment to the dark side. When Darth Vader first sought to create his Sith lightsaber, he was sent by Darth Sidious to hunt down and kill a surviving Jedi, taking the fallen Jedi's kyber crystal as his own. After slaying Jedi Master Kirak Infila, Vader claimed the Jedi's green kyber crystal and attempted to corrupt it. However, the process nearly failed. Vader's own inner conflict threatened to undo the bleeding, as a part of him still clung to his former identity as Anakin Skywalker. Only after fully embracing his pain and rage did he succeed in bending the crystal to his will, turning it into the iconic red blade he wielded for the rest of his life. Not all Sith lightsabers were identical. Some Sith, like Darth Sidious, wielded pristine, elegant red blades, while others, like Kylo Ren, carried unstable, crackling sabers. The difference lay in the condition of the kyber crystal itself. A crystal that was cracked or improperly bled would produce an unstable energy field, leading to an erratic, fiery blade. This was the case for Kylo Ren's lightsaber. His crystal had been damaged during the bleeding process, requiring him to use a unique crossguard design to vent the excess energy. While bleeding was the standard method for Sith to create their lightsabers, there were rare instances where a corrupted kyber crystal could be healed. Jedi who reclaimed Sith lightsabers sometimes attempted to purify the crystals, restoring them to their original state. This was an incredibly difficult process, requiring deep meditation and an overwhelming surge of light side energy. One of the most well-known examples of this was Ahsoka Tano, who purified 2 red Sith kyber crystals, restoring them to a neutral state. The result was a pair of white lightsabers, symbolizing her status as neither Jedi nor Sith. The act of bleeding and healing kyber crystals highlights the fundamental difference between Jedi and Sith. The Jedi sought harmony, listening to the will of the Force and allowing the kyber crystals to choose them. The Sith, on the other hand, sought dominance, forcing the Force itself to submit to their desires. This battle over kyber crystals was not just a conflict of weapons, but a reflection of the eternal struggle between light and dark. But kyber crystals were not only used for lightsabers. The Sith had other plans for them, plans that would change the fate of the galaxy forever. As the Sith sought greater power, they discovered that kyber crystals could be weaponized on an unimaginable scale.